Breaking news is shaking Hollywood to its core. Malcolm-Jamal Warner, the beloved actor who brought Theo Huxtable to life on The Cosby Show, has tragically passed away at just 54 years old. Fans across generations are in disbelief as the heartbreaking news spreads. He wasn't just a TV icon, he was a cultural touchstone, a familiar face in living rooms across America. But what truly has everyone stunned is the shocking cause of death, an unexpected drowning incident that no one saw coming. Sources close to the actor say the details surrounding his final moments are still under investigation, but the loss has already sent waves through the entertainment industry. Tributes are pouring in from co-stars, friends, and fans who grew up watching him navigate adolescence on screen with humor, heart, and authenticity. As the world mourns the loss of a television legend, many are left asking, how could this happen so suddenly to someone who meant so much to so many? Stay with us as we uncover the emotional tributes, final moments, and the hidden story behind this devastating tragedy. What really happened in those final moments? And why are whispers of mystery already circling the sudden and heartbreaking death of Malcolm-Jamal Warner? Known to millions as Theo Huxtable, the smart, lovable son on The Cosby Show, Malcolm wasn't just a TV star. He was family. For decades, he stood as a symbol of joy, growth, and coming of age for an entire generation. But now, at just 54 years old, the news of his tragic and unexpected passing is shaking Hollywood and loyal fans around the globe to their core. Early reports point to a drowning incident, but something doesn't sit right. The details are scarce, and those closest to Malcolm are quietly voicing concerns, hinting at emotional battles and inner struggles the public never saw. Was it truly an accident, or is there more to the story? In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the final hours of his life, reflect on his powerful legacy, and explore the private challenges he may have faced, revealing the side of Malcolm-Jamal Warner that remained hidden behind the spotlight. What you're about to hear may change how you remember this beloved star forever. We'll also hear from family members, close friends, and insiders who were taken aback by the unexpected loss. Some assert that this was the terrible result of years of inner turmoil and silent suffering rather than merely a chance event. You won't believe what the autopsy report revealed. You won't believe the person who was with him in the final hours of his life. You won't believe how this tragedy is similar to another recent death of a famous person. Because this story is far more complex than headlines indicate, don't click away. It's a devastating look at pressure, celebrity, and a man who gave his all while concealing his worst side. It started out as a typical day, quiet, serene, and unremarkable. But at the end of it, one of the most identifiable faces from a generation of television superstars would be gone from the globe. July 18, 2025. According to reports, Malcolm-Jamal Warner was lodging at a private home in upstate New York, close to a remote lake. Over the years, he had made many excursions to that region, which he frequently referred to as his peace zone, a spot where he could disconnect, think, and compose music away from the bustle of Hollywood. He was well known for his love of nature, music, and isolation. Sources close to the family claim that Malcolm had only been there 2 days earlier, by himself. He recently finished a new project, a spoken word music record that he had been covertly producing for the past few months. According to his assistant. According to friends, he appeared worn out but happy, thoughtful but not reclusive. Around 8:00 a.m. on that fateful morning, neighbors reported to police that they spotted Malcolm strolling close to the lakeshore. With headphones on and coffee in hand, the person appeared to be thinking deeply. He was seen wading into the ocean by lunchtime, shirtless this time. It was not out of the ordinary. There, he frequently meditated or swam. What transpired next, however, remains a mystery. A 911 call was placed from a nearby cabin at 3:27 p.m. A hiker had seen what seemed like a man who was still and floating face down in the water. Within 12 minutes, emergency personnel had arrived, retrieved Malcolm from the lake, and tried to perform on-site resuscitation on him, but he was not responding. Shortly after reaching a nearby hospital, he was declared dead. The revelation came as a thunderclap to the entertainment industry. Malcolm-Jamal Warner is no longer with us. Fans were taken aback. Within hours, tributes were flooding in. But the questions had only just started. Accidental drowning was indicated as the cause of death in the first autopsy report that was made public 2 days later. No suspicious injuries or indications of foul play. Toxicology results, however, were marked as pending, which further heightened public interest. Additionally, investigators observed that Malcolm had been alone at the lake house that day. When first responders came, they discovered his phone, belongings, journal, and Bluetooth speaker on the dock, still playing mild jazz. The plot, however, takes a dramatic turn at this point. Why could someone who was so mentally adroit, so physically robust, and so seasoned in the great outdoors drown on a sunny, peaceful afternoon? What did he write in that journal that was discovered next to the water? And before the stillness, who had the last conversation with him? There's a terrifying pause in the history of that day between 1:00 p.m. 300 p.m. A window where no one could see him, no SMS could be exchanged, and there was no sign of movement near the lake house. Some speculate that while in the water, he might have experienced an unexpected medical incident, such as a seizure or fainting spell. There are many who speculate that this might not have been an accident. Malcolm's close friends characterize him as intensely sentimental, very reflective, and unusually silent in recent months. According to reports, he had been separating himself from the Hollywood industry, turning down screenplays in favor of poetry and music. Some have called it confessional and dark. What he might have brought into that water, however, is the true enigma, the legacy of one of the most contentious television programs in history. Coupled with a lifetime of stress, suffering, and public expectations, The Cosby Show was more than just a sitcom to millions of Americans. The portrayal of a black upper-middle-class family with humor, dignity, and love was a cultural revolution, a picture that altered attitudes and contested preconceptions. Theo Huxtable, the endearing and frequently naughty son of Cliff and Claire, was the center of their family. Malcolm-Jamal Warner, a 14-year-old child who was forced into the spotlight, was standing behind that persona. He was not merely acting. In America, he was starting to represent black boyhood. Tens of millions of people watch it every week. When the cameras stopped rolling, the demand to appear flawless, polished, and inspirational continued. It silently influenced all of his decisions as he grew older. Malcolm acknowledged in interviews over the years that his relationship with fame was complex. He talked of feeling stuck, as though his whole personality had been condensed into a single job. Even though he was thankful for the platform, "I could never be Malcolm alone. Even at 40, I was always Theo." Then followed the fall of Bill Cosby, whom Malcolm referred to as America's father, a father figure and a mentor. Cosby's 2018 sexual assault conviction did more than simply damage his reputation. It shattered the cornerstone of Malcolm's career-launching show. Imagine bearing the burden of being a part of something that millions of people loved, only to have it labeled as poisonous, divisive, and even unforgivable. Malcolm chose his remarks wisely and remained silent in public amid the Cosby incident. Although he never publicly supported Cosby, he also did not severely denounce him. Some people were critical of that quiet, while others were sympathetic. However, pals claimed that it had a significant emotional toll on him behind the scenes. One coworker described him as being torn apart. In addition to feeling as though he had lost a father figure, he was unable to publicly mourn that loss without fear of being misinterpreted. Malcolm's reputation was not the only thing impacted by the Cosby scandal. He was involved in a number of projects that were put on hold. There were no more interviews. Casting rooms were filled with rumors. Does he remain bound to Cosby? Will there be opposition? Theo's shadow seemed to turn from a crown to a curse. Malcolm's career shifted toward more subdued mediums where he had greater influence, such as spoken word poetry, music, and directing. He wrote emotionally honest songs that frequently dealt with identity, loss, and the pursuit of serenity because he found comfort in jazz. According to some of his coworkers, he frequently showed up for studio sessions or on set introspective and focused, sometimes withdrawing to be by himself in between takes. These were not idle sentiments, as one producer remembered Malcolm stopping in the middle of a recording, staring out the window and whispering, "You ever feel like you peaked too early, and now the world is just waiting for you to disappear?" They were indicators of a more serious internal struggle, a guy attempting to reconcile a legacy that millions of people admired with an inaccessible personal truth. Malcolm was still searching for that truth, which he never really discovered. Liberty, independence from expectations, from the presentation, from the persona, and perhaps even from the suffering. Many now think he might have been suffering in quiet, even though acquaintances claim he was not given a formal diagnosis of depression. The kind of pain that is imperceptible until it is irreversible, the kind that whispers through canceled plans, protracted disappearances, and mysterious diary entries rather than screaming. Since many people who knew Malcolm-Jamal Warner saw it coming but were powerless to stop it, they were not just surprised to learn that he had quietly drowned far from Hollywood. One heartbreaking question is being asked by friends, coworkers, and devoted fans as the entertainment industry struggles with the unexpected death of Malcolm-Jamal Warner. Were there any indications? Malcolm had been remarkably aloof in the weeks before his untimely drowning death. Those closest to him remember missed phone calls, brief, evasive text responses, and last-minute cancellations of studio sessions and engagements. He had recently started working on an untitled spoken word and jazz fusion record, which he described as his most personal endeavor to date. It is haunting, almost like a eulogy, and full of questions about life, legacy, and letting go. According to the few who have heard early songs, according to one line from a demo tune, "Fame is a funeral with flowers that never die, but the soul they honor is long gone." Looking back, there is a terrible new perspective on those lyrics. During one late-night session, Malcolm abruptly left the booth, sat down on the floor, and just stared into the darkness for almost 10 minutes, according to an assistant producer from the Atlanta studio where he was recording. In an attempt to feel something again, he merely nodded and mumbled when asked whether he was all right. Before his death, he hadn't shared anything on Instagram for more than 3 weeks. Some are reading that last post as a mysterious farewell. It is a black and white picture of a dimly lit microphone with a message. Sometimes the silence is louder than any stage. It is now swamped with comments like, "Why didn't we notice?" and "Please tell me this isn't goodbye." Some think it was a frantic call for assistance. The unanswered messages that were purportedly discovered on his phone after his death are even more disturbing. Several draft texts to friends and former co-stars were left unsent, including one to Kesha, Night Pulliam Rudy Huxtable that only said, "You are the light on set. Always remember that," according to a close acquaintance who was granted restricted access by the family. Another unsent communication to an unidentified contact said, "If I disappear, don't blame anyone. This time, the tide simply tugged too hard. I apologize for fading into the black." It is unknown if these notes were parting statements or if they were penned in a state of emotional weariness. It was quite unusual for Malcolm to have no major projects or booked appearances for the remainder of the year. According to his manager, in an attempt to shed light on child stardom and surviving a dysfunctional profession, he had even put a halt to the writing of a memoir that he had been hinting at for more than 10 years. According to some sources, the book was almost finished, but his editor reportedly started crying after reading a section of the last chapter. The title of the chapter was "Drowning on Dry Land." Was it a fortuitous event or a terrifying prophecy? The extent of Malcolm's loss is still being processed by his inner group. The tragedy, in their opinion, is not just how he passed away, but also how little they understood of the emotional tempest he had been submerging himself in for years. "He was the guy who always made you feel seen, but we forgot to see him," a longtime friend remarked in a tribute. The world came to a halt when word leaked out about Malcolm-Jamal Warner's unexpected passing. Disbelief exploded on social media. Timelines were overflowing with headlines, and the general reaction was one of astonishment, grief, and respect. He was more than Cliff and Claire's witty, occasionally disobedient kid, Theo Huxtable. He represented black boyhood, maturation, and quiet fortitude. For many, Malcolm was a unique prime-time television representation of a young black guy navigating life with comedy, intelligence, and vulnerability. Hollywood's global response to Harlem. Fans gathered in candlelight vigils from coast to coast. Some outside the Brooklyn location of the former Cosby Show studio owned by NBC. Others visited the Hollywood Walk of Fame, where admirers placed old VHS cassettes of previous episodes, flowers, and handwritten letters. Fans who grew up watching the Huxtable family every Thursday night started a number sign, Theo Forever movement, after a graffiti artist in Harlem, who had long respected Malcolm's legacy, painted a huge memorial that read, "Theo taught us to dream." The mural swiftly went popular on Instagram. Co-stars talk. Emotional tributes from the cast. His former co-stars, who had grown up with him both on and off screen, gave the most heartfelt homages. Claire Huxtable and Felicia Rashad issued a written statement. On television, Malcolm was more than just a son. He was in every way family. Every stride he took was filled with purpose, joy, suffering, and grace. A kind warrior has just left the planet. Rudy Huxtable, Keyshawn Knight PM, shared a heartfelt video. I used to refer to him as Malcolm, my big brother. When I didn't even know what rhythm was, he taught me about poetry, kept me safe, and made jokes with me. I'm shattered, really broken. Even Lisa Bonet, who is infamously private and no longer involved with Hollywood, sent a brief, heartfelt remark. Tempest Bledsoe Vanessa posted a 1990 photo of the two with a caption, "We were babies. We laughed at everything. Now I'm crying for you every hour. Rest, Malcolm, you mattered." He had the quiet of a storm and the soul of a poet. He carried more than he displayed, and I always knew it. The funeral, a silent farewell. A few musicians and poets who had collaborated with him over the years, as well as intimate friends and former cast members, attended the invitation-only memorial service held in a historic Pasadena chapel. Sources claim that black and white pictures of Malcolm from various decades, including his early days on set, jazz concerts, and private, reflective times, were all around the room. When Malcolm's spoken word poetry was recorded and played throughout the service, it was one of the most moving moments. There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd as he said, "If I leave with no goodbye, remember the rhythm, not the silence. Remember the fight, not the fall. And when you speak my name, speak it like music." His voice reverberated through the cathedral walls, a loss that spans generations. Malcolm's passing affected more than simply his peers. Fans of all ages were affected. Online, adults who grew up watching The Cosby Show sobbed publicly. Millennials posted old videos of Theo advocating for his goals. His ability to make being sensitive seem cool was praised by younger fans who were first exposed to reruns by their parents. The actor wasn't the only one grieving. It was for the time he stood for, the optimism he brought, and the future that now seems a little less bright without him. The world's grief was captured in a single tweet. He didn't need noise or scandals. He bestowed upon us truth, art, and silent strength. Malcolm, may you rest in poetry. The world realized something more profound as Malcolm-Jamal Warner's life came to an end. That one role, one show, or even one generation was never the extent of his legacy. Malcolm's tale was one of subdued change. He didn't yell. He wasn't looking for trouble. He wasn't made for scandal-plagued celebrity or sensational headlines. In a way that few others could, he served as a link between generations of black manhood, culture, and talent. He was the type of performer who developed in front of millions of people while still managing to preserve some aspects of his soul. Holy, personal, meaningful, brother, teacher, mentor, and outside of the screen. Malcolm became a mentor to aspiring black performers in his latter years, frequently giving talks at historically black universities and taking part in independent cinema workshops. "Your story is powerful. Tell it with integrity, not noise," he once said to a group of students. "That's the only way it will endure." Yahya Abdul-Mateen and Charles Jerome, among other actors, have talked about Warner's subdued mentoring and how he influenced their approach to acting. He wanted to do more than just perform. He wished to inspire. His records, which included spoken word poetry, jazz, and soul, served as a reminder that there were more ways to express oneself than stardom ever permitted. And he addressed difficult topics like fatherhood, healing, generational trauma, and black identity in his poetry readings and articles. The Broken Compass, his TED Talk-style presentation, is still cited in college courses today, both late recognition and acclaim. Malcolm never sought accolades, but they ultimately came to him. His independent short film, Rhythm and Roots, earned him a silent NAACP Image Award nomination prior to his death. Calls to posthumously recognize him with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, honorary degrees, and retrospectives on major streaming platforms increased after his passing. Malcolm's life as a human being, a thinker, a healer, and a guardian of dignity was explored in the films and specials that BET TV and PBS each announced. Universities that study cultural memory and curricula, such as Howard and Morehouse, have suggested media studies courses that analyze The Cosby Show not only for its controversy, but also for Malcolm's nuanced portrayal of Theo, a character who fought with his parents, made mistakes, battled dyslexia, failed at love, and nevertheless developed into a thoughtful man. For Theo was more than a fictional character. For many of us, he was genuine. When no one else was watching, a friend, cousin, or a fragment of oneself was reflected back in the television mirror. The hashtag that turned into a trend, a modest tribute post turned into a call to action. Although it began to spread on several media, Theo forever went beyond nostalgia. Black males used it as a forum to talk about their hardships, mental health issues, silent triumphs, and creative aspirations. I never got to thank him in person, but I'll honor him by writing, by showing up for my people, by telling my story just like he told, one user said, while another added, he made it okay to not have it all figured out. He made being sensitive cool. He made being black and vulnerable powerful.